Paul Hullings and Tim Young didn't know they would make a big difference when they went to a diner in Delran, New Jersey. They were coming home after a very tough night and needed coffee and breakfast to feel better. They saw 130 Diner and went inside, not knowing something important would happen that day. Paul and Tim often dealt with difficult situations, and their tiredness from the recent night showed on their faces, but they had no clue about what would happen in the diner that morning, and it would deeply affect them. Liz Woodward was also tired from working a long shift, but she had to keep going. The long hours were tough, but when she remembered her goals, she knew she had to endure it with a smile. When two tired-looking men with dirty clothes and exhausted faces walked into the diner, Liz noticed them. Her heart raced when she realized who they were. Liz went over to the men to take their orders, and that's when Paul confirmed her thoughts. He said, "I need the biggest cup of coffee you have," while rubbing his eyes. The other man agreed, and Liz was happy to help. As she made their hot coffee, she overheard bits of their conversation and saw their faces on the TV news. She recognized them right away. Standing stock still with the coffee pot still in her hand, she watched the news spellbound. The fire had raged for most of the night, but thankfully it was finally under control. It had broken out in a warehouse in North Brunswick, less than an hour's drive away. She knew what she had to do. Waiting for the men to finish their coffee and farmhouse breakfast, Liz shook as she carefully wrote her note on the bill. She doodled a picture of an axe on one side as an afterthought before clearing their plates and leaving it on the table. When Paul picked it up and began to read, tears filled his eyes. The two Mount Holly Fire Department firefighters sat in silence, dumbstruck by what they had just read. The young waitress was obviously struggling herself, working weekends, night shifts, and whatever shifts at the diner she could to try to pay off her student loan and make ends meet, but they couldn't begin to fathom just how much trouble she had at home. After battling the raging fire in a North Brunswick warehouse for more than 12 hours, Tim had realized that his partner and friend, Paul, was flagging. When they had finally managed to get the fire under control, the two men were exhausted. It was Tim who realized that Paul hadn't eaten, so he decided to take a drive to the 130 Diner. Now, Liz's life was about to change in a big way. After Paul and Tim read her note, they immediately posted it on Facebook, where it gained a lot of traction. The firefighters' post was liked, commented on, and shared thousands of times. Soon, people on the street were recognizing Liz. She became Facebook famous overnight. So, what did the note say? "Your breakfast is on me today. Thank you for all that you do for serving others and for running into the places everyone else runs away from," Liz wrote. "No matter your role, you are courageous, brave, and strong. Thank you for being bold every day, fueled by fire and driven by courage. What an example you are. Get some rest." I started tearing up, and it made me feel good, as firefighters are wanted people care about us, Paul told WPVI-TV. But it was only after the post went viral that the firefighters learned that Liz had some serious problems of her own. They found Liz's GoFundMe account online, and they knew they had to take action. Such a selfless and kind act. I definitely urge my friends to take a trip out and support the business. And if Liz happens to be your waitress, tip big, Tim wrote on the Facebook post. Turns out, the young lady who gave us a free meal is really the one who could use the help. We've rented a van before, twice actually, so that my dad could attend his father's funeral and his daughter's graduation, since transport isn't covered unless your trip is deemed medically necessary. And it's very expensive out of pocket, Liz wrote on her GoFundMe page. It was the first time since his aneurysm ruptured that he was able to interact with family members and friends he hadn't seen in years. After Liz's dad suffered an aneurysm, he was left wheelchair-bound. Liz was trying to raise money with her GoFundMe campaign to buy him a wheelchair-accessible van to make his life a little easier. Paul and Tim were touched that their waitress was once again thinking about how she could better the lives of people around her. "We watched my father smile, and we witnessed joy and accomplishment, and he watched his memories strengthen with every person who left his side in disbelief that he could remember exactly who they were and what got them in trouble back in the day," Tim continued. "See, my dad is still Steve. He's just Steve who survived a brain injury and now uses a wheelchair. He deserves to be Steve and not just a patient or a number on a chart." More and more people found out about Liz's campaign when they saw Paul and Tim's post on Facebook about her good deed. People from all over the world started donating money. The goal was to collect $17,000, but in just a few days, it became much more, over $70,000. This was more than enough to buy a new lift and van for Liz's dad. All of this happened because Liz wanted to do something nice for two tired firefighters. Liz never expected to get such a big reward. She didn't think that paying for the firefighters' $15 breakfast was a big deal. I know people are talking about it like it's something amazing, but it's actually a small and simple act of kindness, she told news reporter. She never imagined that her small act of kindness would turn into such a huge gesture from her heroes. After collecting even more money than they needed, Liz wrote a heartfelt thank you message. She expressed how grateful she was for all the love and support from people around the world. She thanked everyone for making her dream come true. This story shows that being kind can bring wonderful results. What's your take on Liz's small act leading to a remarkable surprise? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.